Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Edgar Cisneros, and today we're going to share with you the install of our Artec high steer weld-on brackets on our junkyard Super Duty Dana 60. Pay attention so your install can be as smooth as ours. Let's take a look at the whole kit. That way we can identify what goes on the passenger side and what goes on the driver's side. We have two main brackets, two interior tabs, two gussets, two spacers, two sleeves, and two 3/4 inch bolts. Now, these brackets do go on all of the 2005 and newer Super Duty axles. However, there was a change in the casting of the knuckles after a few years, and Artec knows about this. So, if your junkyard axle is between 2005 and 2010, you're going to have to trim off a little bit, and I'll show you where. Now, my little helper here, she's going to point out where the lines are at. So, you see the lines right there? So, if you have a 2005 to 2010 junkyard axle of the Super Duty, right? You're going to have to trim these edge lines here, and those lines are visible on both knuckles. Make sure you don't cut too much off, giving yourself a big gap to weld. Cutting on those lines will be good to go. There's one more thing that we have to grind down on both of these castings in order for the bracket to fit nice and flush, to have a nice tight fit. And it's these little pimples on the front side. You see it in there? It's right there. These grinding stones are going to be on both steering knuckles. I decided to use a flap disc to go ahead and blend both of them down. The next step is to drill the driver's side knuckle to 3/4 of an inch. I decided to use a step bit since I didn't have the traditional drill bit. Next, we move on to the sleeves and spacers. The passenger side gets the sleeve with a taper on it, and it also uses the larger of the two spacers, followed by the split lock washer and the nut. The driver's side gets the remaining sleeve and spacer, where the sleeve does not have a taper on it, and the spacer is the smaller one of the two, followed by the split lock washer and nut. Now, this next step isn't in Artec's install instructions, but since I know that welding may cause some shrinking and distortion, I decided to make myself a little spacer to give me a little bit of wiggle room. Now, the original 3/4 inch washer is about a little bit bigger than 1/8 of an inch, and I found this washer that is about 16 gauge. Now, the washer didn't fit the 3/4 inch bolt, so I went ahead and drilled it out, and it fits like a glove, and I'll show you guys how we're using it. Kylie's assembling the passenger side bracket to get it ready to be tacked up. Now, we're going to be using those freshly made spacers along with the heims to hold that interior tab in its correct location. In our scenario, we're going to be using the bolt holes closest to the steering knuckle for the drag link and the bolt holes furthest away from the knuckle for the tie rod. Be sure to snug up the 3/4 inch bolts before tacking anything up. After bolting up the heims, grab the whole assembly and slide it onto the steering knuckle to check for that perfect fit. Now, the gusset here, I would move the gusset all the way down to give you the perfect outside corner joint on this end of the bracket. This is how we fit up the driver's side bracket. Don't forget to also check for fitment on the steering knuckle as well. I freaking love that sound. Now, for tack welding, what I would do is I would place one tack at a minimum at every weld zone and two tacks for those weld zones that are longer than 2 inches to lock everything in place. Since I hate cutting things apart, we're going to check the fitment one more time after tacking. This is the wiggle room that we gave ourselves by using these spacers. It's not too much, and it's definitely not too little to the point where we're going to be fighting the joints in after welding and painting. Okay. It could be prettier, but she'll do. These brackets can be welded on by using MIG, stick, or TIG. Just make sure whatever process you decide to use is enough to weld 1/4 inch thick steel. The last thing we want are for these brackets to fall off on the trail, or even worse, driving down the road. The brackets are now cool to the touch, and what Kylie's doing is she's marking the weld zones between the bracket and the steering knuckle. That way we can remove the paint from the weld zones. The casting already has a bunch of impurities in it, so the cleaner the weld zone is, the better the outcome will be. Before heating and welding, we're going to spray some of this anti-spatter over all of the machine surfaces. That way they're protected and nothing sticks to them.
This is the second time you ever turned it on before?
Second.
Kylie should have on some dark glasses when using the torch, but we gave them to Eliana so she can watch the whole process. We're bringing up the temperature of the steering knuckle up to 350 degrees before welding anything to it, since they are dissimilar metals. If you weld the brackets with the steering knuckle face down just like this, then move the ground to the bracket, that way you don't leave arc strikes on the machine surface.
Okay. Alright.
You can see Kylie having some fun there. She added about 6 tacks before I took over and started welding out the whole thing. To weld everything out, I placed 3 small stringer beads at the top of the bracket and the front face of the bracket. I left one good sized weld where the gusset meets the steering knuckle, and also left a single stringer bead around the sleeve where the bolt is at.
That's the end of that part of this project. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and share the video. You never know, it may help out a friend or two. We'll see you guys on the next one.